Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic related to the weather, winter control.
Uh-oh, what else you got?
Let's talk about the challenges and the resources that we're spending to keep the roads clear and safe in the winter here. How do we do it? How long does it take when there's a snowfall?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We have many kilometers of roads in the municipality, city of Kawartha Lakes. We have about, if you talk a plow going both ways on a road, about 5,500 kilometers both ways. So a plow obviously goes one way and then comes back and does the other side of the street. So if you compare that to from the coast of Newfoundland to the coast of BC, you're pretty close to the amount of roadways that we have to plow every time we have a winter event. We have a level of service. There's a provincial minimum level of service, and we have a council mandated level of service on top of that. So the 2.5 centimeters on your regional roads and about 8 centimeters on some of the secondary roads. We have on a full call out, it takes probably 6 to 8, 10 hours, somewhere in that range, to clear all the roads, just depending on, you know, the length of the storm, the severity of the storm, and how it's affecting different areas of our city. I mean, we're a huge municipality. We have different climate zones within our city, so it could be sunny down in the, you know, the south of the city and snowing like crazy in the north end of the city. So we have a good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have people patrolling out, our staff out patrolling our roads, and they call in whenever there's winter events. And if it's a citywide call out on a big storm, then so be it. But a lot of times it's a regional call out, you know, depending on local conditions, which can be blowing snow. I mean, it doesn't have to be a snow event, or it could be freezing rain. It could be a lot of different things. And, you know, we react the best we can and try to do the best we can with the resources we have. And it's a challenge for everybody, but we do, for the most part, hit our minimum level of standard pretty consistently.
What's the average cost for a winter event response?
Yeah, it depends again on the event and the length of the event, but they've sort of figured out that an average cost is about $125,000 every time there's a full call out. On average, you know, during a regular business day, we got all our resources out, sanding, salting, plowing across the municipality. You know, again, we can have a freezing rain event and all our resources can be out, and they might be using more salt and sand as opposed to having the plow down. It just depends on what the event is, but it's about $125,000 on average. We used to budget for 40 events a year, just so people know, and it wasn't enough. We were always over budget on our winter control. So council last year, the year before, over the last 2 years, we've brought that up to budgeting now for 50 winter events. And if you do the math, you can see how it adds up pretty extensively over the course of a year. So
right.
It doesn't take long to add up to 40 or 50 winter events over the course of a winter.
I was going to ask you, how do we budget for winter control each year, and maybe what's changed over the past couple of years, but it sounds like that's part of it, more winter events, so therefore more call-outs.
Yeah, we've tried to bring the budget up to a more realistic amount. I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, we can save money and budget a little less for it, but if it keeps snowing, we got to keep clearing the roads. We're not going to stop when the money runs out, so we just go over budget. So let's get it to the point where we're budgeting properly for what we need as a municipality to give our men and women the resources and the tools to do the job properly. You know, I think people have to realize too that weather patterns are changing too, we can all say what's causing climate change. That's probably an argument for a different day. But at the end of the day, we get more freezing rain than we used to have, you know, snowstorms. We get a lot more freeze and thaw cycles coming across our city. Our roads weren't made years ago to take that. 1 or 2 freeze thaws a winter. Some winters now we're getting 4 or 5, and you see the heaving and the bucking, you know, where it's +10 one day, -20 the next day. It takes its tolls on our road, and we have to change. We have to adjust and do different things with our roads than we never did 10 or 15 years ago, so that they last the right amount of time. And it's all part of that process moving forward. So when you say what's changed, you know, it's not just budgeting for the proper amount, but it's trying to adapt to the changes in our winters. And all you got to do is go outside today to see that it's pretty chilly out there.
That's right. This is a cold one. Do you remember that 3-day ice storm last April?
I do.
Yeah. There must have been some extra costs associated with that. That came very late in the season.
It did. There was some extra costs, and part of that was my therapy from all the phone calls I got from residents. So that was a tough one. That was right at the end of our contract cycle, where we had our contract with our employees, or with our contractors, that sort of ended on the Saturday. That event went Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, there was a total cost to that event when they added it all up of over $400,000, one single winter event. And some of that comes into effect because it was a mixture of rain and sleet. It was nonstop for 3 days. And you have to remember that our staff are only legislated, they're allowed to work so many hours in a day. They're driving plow trucks, right? They're not driving go-karts, so they have to be careful, they can't be tired. And they have to get out there, and they're only allowed, I think it's 8 or 12 hours, and then they have to be off for 8 hours. So even though the snow continues, they had to take stop, and that's a challenge for people, because their roads are being snowed in, and they're saying, where's the staff to clear those roads? So
And you can't just use other drivers because
we don't
they're
have
not
another
available.
shift of drivers
Right.
waiting around to jump in the trucks when these guys time out, right? And so it's, most of the time a winter event is not that long, but when you get something that's sustained over 3 or 4 days, it certainly creates its challenges and its cost. And, there was some, citizens struggled with it, and our staff struggled with it. And it's just one of those unknown things. You do the best you can. And there was a cost to that right at the end of the winter, And for our material, we were out of salt and sand, timed perfectly by April. We're all out of our material, so we don't have any left. And all of a sudden we had to bring in some, sort of emergency supplies of that. So there was a cost to that as well. So
Right.
that one caught us a little bit off guard.
Now, is everyone who clears roads for us here at Kawartha Lakes, are they all city staff, or has most of this been contracted out now to private?
Yeah, no, most of it is city staff. We have about 71 routes across the municipality, different areas, different zones, and different routes. About 61 of those are done in-house, and about 10 of those are contracted out. So we have some regional roads that are contracted out because it makes sense, and we have some other little pockets of the municipality that is contracted out because they're local knowledge, in some of the little corners that our staff can't get to. It makes a lot of sense to do it that way. But out of the 71 routes, 61 of them are done in-house. So we have a pretty good fleet of men, women, and equipment that looks after our roads, and especially in winter. It's quite an army that we put out there to help clear the roads.
I want to ask you one just quick question.
Sure.
Why do residents sometimes see snow plows driving on the roads with the plow up during winter events? You must have been asked.
I have been asked that, and sometimes they're going to an area. So sometimes we might have, without knowing what the rationale, the exact reason why, we have contractors, as I mentioned, that do certain routes. So sometimes a plow driver will have to get to his designated area, and he might be going over past an area that is a contractor's. We also have provincial highways that run through our municipality, and we don't do any winter maintenance or summer maintenance on our provincial highways. So our plows will go down a provincial highway to get to an area. Obviously, they're not going to have their plow down, and sometimes you'll see the provincial plows driving down our regional roads to get to a provincial highway as well without their plows down. So if it's part of their route and the snow needs to be cleared, then they'll have their plow down. But sometimes there's some reasons why.